How many of you have read transmigration novels or webtoons before? What about one with a gaming system? A floating, mysterious interface that is meant to help you live out your dreams in a new world. Well, this is another one of those books with a slightly unique twist. We're not being transmigrated into a human character, but as an animal. Of course, this idea itself is also not completely unique, with the transmigration trope becoming incredibly trendy and popular over the years. This is just another one of those books that takes its own spin on this classic idea. We have comics of people transmigrating as cats, birds, and even fish. So when I heard about this danmei, I immediately put it into my basket because I knew I would absolutely devour any of these transmigration stories. They are just so fun and entertaining to read, even though they all end up being quite similar to each other. I was also spoiled by some comments about this story having the label of Mpreg. Yes, fish and Mpreg. And as your go-to AO3 girly, well, I just had to give this book a try. Before I get into the review though, I just want to put up a warning first. If you have never read any danmei, which is just basically Chinese BL novels, or other Chinese web novels or light novels, and if you have only ever read English literature, then you will probably find that this book is incredibly amateurish. And I would never recommend a book like this for someone who has never engaged with this particular genre before, because it is going to be a huge culture shock. If you view this type of writing with the same lenses that you use to analyze classic literature, you're going to be very disappointed, and chances are you're gonna really hate the writing. But I just want to say that this type of writing, the casual internet, meme-ish writing, is its own unique genre, and it does have its own audience. So you might view this as brain rot or tropey cliche writing, but there are people who enjoy it for what it is. So just beware if you happen to actually pick this book up to read after my review, because this is like stepping into an entirely different culture where this kind of writing is considered perfectly normal and entertaining. Chinese web novels aren't for everyone, and that's perfectly fine. If you really are interested in trying out danmei though, I highly recommend reading any of, forgive me if I butcher the pronunciation, 墨香同社 books, because they are slightly more refined plot-wise and also without many of the cliche tropes. Not to say that this book isn't good, but it's just a different vibe and serves a different purpose. So if you want to give this book a try, just be open-minded, because I can see how some people might be genuinely shocked by the writing style. Anyway, let's get started. Welcome to my book review on the Disabled Tyrant's beloved pet fish series. So what exactly is this story about? So this story follows our protagonist, Li Yu, who falls asleep reading a classic danmei web novel about a tyrannical mute prince who falls in love with a dainty male concubine who then fights his way up to obtain the throne. The original novel is basically your classic Chinese dog blood court drama story, but with a lot of toxic and questionable plot lines. Luckily for our protagonist, he isn't transmigrated into any important character within the novel. Instead, he finds himself waking up as a fish. Yes, an actual fish. Somehow along the way, he then gets adopted by Prince Jing, the male lead of the web novel, and is raised as his pet carp. With the help of a not-so-useful magic gaming system, Li Yu attempts to complete a series of missions and tasks in order to regain access to his human form and survive. When Li Yu asks this mysterious system what his final goal is supposed to be, the system says that he is ultimately tasked with making Prince Jing, the male lead of the original novel, happy. Li Yu has no idea what a happy ending looks like for Prince Jing, but he assumes it means preventing all the tragic events from the original novel from happening. There's a problem though, because The missions given by this sentient gaming system somehow feels like it's trying to make Li Yu seduce Prince Jing instead. But how is he supposed to do that when he's just a fish? As you can probably already tell from this synopsis alone, this novel series is pure chaos and crack on steroids. It is unapologetically dumb and hilarious, and I mean this in a positive way. For those of you who have no prior experience with this type of trope or have never read any Chinese or isekai web novels before, just know that this kind of over-the-top plot is very normal. There are plenty of stories out there about people dying, getting run over by a truck, or falling asleep simply just to wake up in the world of a novel they have been reading. This is another one of those novels, but with a very heavy focus on comedy. Personally, when I read the summary of this novel, I was already intrigued because instead of being transmigrated into the body of a side character, villain, or anyone really, the main character was transmigrated as a carpfish. So, without further ado, let's take a deeper dive into this funny, lighthearted, domestic, and fish-slapping journey. In case you're wondering, I am going to give you a review on this series as a whole, so all 4 books will be discussed. So let's get started with a spoiler-free section of this book review. So first of all, I want to talk about some of the good things that I enjoyed about this whole series. First up, we have the comedy or the humor and just basically the whole lighthearted vibe. Are you looking for something funny to read? Something that is absurd, whimsical, ridiculous, and perhaps even brainless? Well, this book definitely hits all of those marks. Reading this book feels like you're watching a live rom-com drama where everything that can go wrong just goes wrong. It is a train wreck and a series of unfortunately hilarious events that keep us entertained. There is an underlying plotline where Li Yu is trying to help Prince Jing become a better person, unlike his tyrannical persona in the original rep novel. We get to see Li Yu as a mere fish, trying to help Prince Jing escape from assassins, jealous brothers, and all sorts of scheming consorts. But this is all done in a very comical manner. In fact, the political battles going on within the royal court doesn't really have a serious or dangerous tone to it until we reach the last volume. In AO3 terms, this story is simply pure crack. I don't even know if it qualifies as crack treated seriously. It's just that absurd and hilarious. I mean, we as the readers know that our main character is a fish, right? But no one else knows that. Everyone else in the court just thinks Prince Jing somehow really treasures his pet fish. And Prince Jing himself doesn't know that his pet fish is actually a transmigrated human either. So this entire story's premise is just ridiculous. And all the characters literally think Prince Jing has fallen in love with a bloody fish. The misunderstanding is so comical, I couldn't stop laughing every time someone was shocked at how nice Prince Jing, the supposedly tyrannical prince, was treating his carpfish. Also, without spoiling anything, I think everyone's favorite recurring scene in this entire series is when Li Yu, as a fish, jumps out of his fishbowl to literally slap people with his tail. And after realizing that his pet fish is incredibly smart and protective of him, Prince Jing starts to love his fish more. In truth, Li Yu is just trying his best to keep Prince Jing alive because their fates are intertwined because of the gaming system, not because he actually likes Prince Jing as a person. And when the relationship between Prince Jing and Li Yu starts to take a raunchy turn, because everyone knows nothing about Li Yu's true identity as a human being, everyone just thinks Prince Jing is somehow, quote-unquote, making love to his fish. Bruh. Which is honestly disturbing and stupid, but Prince Jing doesn't give a shit about what other people are thinking. He doesn't correct them at all, and the entire court is just baffled at what the hell is going on with their prince. It's just so funny and ridiculous. So as you can see, this story is pure vibes. It is lighthearted, silly, goofy, domestic, and cute without anything deep or existential about it. All I can say is, it's one hell of an entertaining adventure. Aside from the obvious comedic undertones of this story, I also really love the relationship between Prince Jing and Li Yu. Reading all of their sweet scenes together makes me want to scream or squeal and shove my head under the pillow because it's just so cute and fluffy. Prince Jing is like a green flag on top of every green flag possible. He genuinely cares about Li Yu, even when he had no idea that Li Yu was actually a human. Even as a fish, he treats Li Yu better than he treats anybody in the whole palace. Li Yu gets a special fish tank and water bowl specifically tailor-made for him to use. And when Prince Jing realizes that his pet fish seems to like treasures, well, he goes ahead and throws a bunch of precious jewels inside the fish tank. When the king calls him for a meeting, he also brings a fish tank along with him just so that Li Yu can listen along as well. Mind you, this is when Prince Jing has no idea his fish can actually understand human speech. He just loves his damn pet fish so much he takes it everywhere. And everyone is just looking at him like he's gone crazy, but he doesn't care about their opinions at all. He just wants to love his fish and play with it, okay? More importantly, these two can't physically communicate, and yet they truly understand each other. In the entirety of book 1, they don't have a single conversation because Li Yu is still in his fish form and Prince Jing is obviously still mute, right? So all they can do is just read each other's actions and expressions in order to identify what the other person needs. But because they spent their days interacting this way, Prince Jing and Li Yu end up practically capable of reading each other's minds. Like literally, with just one glance, they know immediately what the other person is thinking or feeling. So this is a relationship where communication is pretty much perfect. There are no misunderstandings between these two. Even prior to the reveal, Prince Jing had some suspicions that his fish may not actually be a normal fish, but perhaps an animal spirits of sorts. So this is an explanation taken right from Wikipedia. Basically, Yao Guai represents a broad and diverse class of ambiguous creatures in Chinese folklore and mythology defined by the possession of supernatural powers. They are especially associated with transformation and enchantment. So these Chinese creatures, called Yao Guai, vary considerably from one another in appearance and powers. So for example, there are Yao that are capable of shapeshifting, creating illusions, hypnosis, controlling minds, causing diseases, clairvoyance, and basically just draining the life force of mortals. They often dwell in remote areas or on the fringes of civilization, where they produce all manner of unexplainable phenomena and mischief. They also have predatory or malevolent tendencies usually, so as you can see, having a Yao Guai in your palace is considered to be very dangerous. If anyone were to find one, they would probably kill it immediately, but even when Prince Jing believes his pet fish may actually be one of these Chinese monsters, he has no thoughts about killing it at all. He is already besotted with this lovely little creature. In fact, his reaction when he first comes up with this theory is basically, "Oh, my koi fish is a carp spirit? Am I being neglectful? What does it need? I need to do more research and read all the books about these Chinese spirits. I must make sure my carp spirit is safe, happy, and healthy, even if I have to give it my life force."
Bruh.
Literally, Prince Jing was ready to allow this carp spirit to suck away his life and drain his essence as long as that made Li Yu happy. Bro is so whipped, it's actually so crazy. He has never even talked to Li Yu before at this point, and he's already prepared to just die for him. And that is exactly why their relationship just gives me life. It's so sweet and pure. They are basically a match made in heaven. Li Yu is also very kind-hearted and balances out Prince Jing's more violent or short-tempered tendencies. Li Yu is also capable of creating strategies and has saved Prince Jing's life quite a number of times throughout this series. He may be a little ditzy, cute, and oddball with awkward tendencies to embarrass himself, but he means well and truly comes to care for Prince Jing in the end as well. Their relationship is, without a doubt, one of the best parts of this entire series. So now that I've talked about the good parts of this story, it's also time that we dive deeper into the things that perhaps didn't work that well, or things that might turn somebody off from reading this book. First of all, although I do like the main characters of this story and their sweet relationship, they aren't the most complex people in the world. So this story suffers heavily from having a lot of one-dimensional characters. In fact, Liu is quite a simpleton, and Prince Jing's defining characteristics are simply that he's a simp for Liu and then cold to basically everybody else. Also, most of this story involves these two main characters interacting with each other only, and rarely do we see them talking to other people for longer than a couple pages total. Liu himself cares for Prince Jing's people, like his most trusted subordinate, the eunuch Wang Xi, or Prince Jing's maternal cousin, Ye Xinghuan, along with his pet dog. But outside of Prince Jing and Liu's relationship with one another, there's really no room for anyone else to butt in. Sometimes this is nice, but this story really just focuses on them and only them. So if you're not a fan of either Liu or Prince Jing's character, then you might find this story to be very boring or annoying. Aside from the main characters, we also have a lot of villains, both significant and insignificant. There are 8 princes in total, and 3 of them are basically our enemies. We have the second prince, Mu Tianzhao, the third prince, Mu Tianming, and the 6th prince, Mu Tianchao. They're all candidates running for the throne who see Prince Jing as a potential rival, so their primary reason to harm him is just because he stands in their way. There's no deeper meaning to it, it's just that they're rivals for the throne and they're meant to fight each other. The only character trait is just that they stand against Prince Jing, and therefore they are automatically the bad guys without any other interesting motives or motivations. Basically, they are your classic cartoonish evil villains without any depth to them. Of course, once we have evil princes, we also have evil concubines as well, such as concubine Shu or concubine Xian, who scheme to gain favor from the emperor to help their sons. Just like in the typical period dramas, women characters, especially ones living in the palace, are always depicted as fighting against each other and trying to bring down other women instead of the men that make their lives miserable. Similarly here, they pretty much do a bunch of stupid things to help their dumb sons try to win the favor of their father, and then fail epically while also trying to harm Prince Jing, and thus they are easily disposed of. There's also another incredibly important villain character called Shu Yanyu. He was the original main character of the novel that Liu transmigrated into, and within the original storyline, he was meant to win Prince Jing's heart. Of course, that doesn't happen in the transmigration version of the story, and thus he is immediately painted as a green tea bitch. For those who don't know what a green tea bitch is, it's a Chinese internet slang or lingo that basically means a character that appears high-end or pure, but is secretly scheming, calculating, and often a homewrecker. Their behavior immediately switches when they have nothing to gain from someone's company, so basically they're the kind of woman that other women cannot stand in media. Personally, I don't hate Shu Yanyu because he just did what he had to do because he loved the wrong man and wanted to get power to survive within the roofless palace. Honestly, he didn't really have bad reasons for doing what he did. The man's just trying to get a good life for himself, and I don't think I can fault him for that. But of course, because he schemes to get away with all the bad things he does to the main characters, he is automatically reduced to a cartoonish evil villain who is simply jealous of Liu and Prince Jing and tries to ruin everything. So yeah, as you can see, no one in this story is a well-rounded or well-written character. They all just stand for tropes and serve their purposes according to what the author intends for them. But aside from their roles, they don't really feel like real people. Something else that also was really annoying to me is that the plot was pretty much non-existent. As I told you before, we do have some semblance of a major plot line. We have Li Yu, who has been transmigrated into this novel where he has to make sure Prince Jing reaches a happy ending in order for him to survive. We assume that this is going to be a very challenging task, but in reality, Li Yu just has to seduce the prince, which he does very easily with his goofy and endearing charms. Then we sort of have a side plot kind of thing where it promises palace intrigue, where Li Yu has to defend Prince Jing from all of the evil people trying to hurt him, but not a lot of politics actually happens in the story either. In fact, we get a bunch of assassins trying to hurt not Prince Jing, but his fish instead. And most of the court drama gets resolved quite easily, and Li Yu and Prince Jing together are just unstoppable. Not because they're amazing, but just because their enemies are kind of dumb. Also, all of the missions that Li Yu had to complete in order to survive and reach a happy ending for Prince Jing were relatively easy. Of course, the fun part is how Li Yu has to complete them while being in his fish form, but outside of that, everything just easily falls into place. It's quite obvious to me that this story isn't meant to be taken that seriously, which is fine, but it does lead to a fairly predictable and boring, repetitive plot. Without the romance aspect of this book, there would literally be no plot. In fact, the whole plot of this book isn't actually really about Li Yu and Prince Jing working hard together to get their happy ending. It's more like a series of satisfying revenge schemes where they deliver punishments to the evil villains. Basically, it's just scenes and scenes of face-slapping humiliation for the enemies, while the main couple gets fluffy domestic moments in between. We do get one final big boss reveal moment in the last book, Book 4, but even that whole scheme gets resolved in less than a few chapters. So it's very clear to me that this story doesn't actually focus on having a readable plot. It just feels like the primary focus of this series is actually just Li Yu and Prince Jing's relationship, except that there really isn't much of a development in that area either. It's clear that the two of them are very much in love, but nothing ever happens between them except for fluffy moments. In the end, this series delivers a feel-good kind of story where the couple are sweet, in love with each other, and they get their happy ending while even villains die or lose. It's perhaps even more of a fairy tale than an actual fairy tale because everything in this story is just meant to be satisfying and nothing else. I'll be very honest that after Li Yu and Prince Jing got together, I got quite bored with the story. It's nice to see them being so sweet with each other and creating a domestic life for themselves, but there's just nothing happening in this story. As a result, I just wanted to fall asleep by the time I reached book 3. Another problem with this story is also the pacing. It's actually one of my major gripes with this story. I have no problem with minimal obstacles or political arcs sprinkled in between the domestic scenes, but there's a huge imbalance in play here, and this becomes more clear when we actually analyze what occurs within each book of this series. So in my opinion, book 1 is definitely the best of them all. Okay, it has everything perfectly balanced from humor, the two main characters falling in love, a few villains introduced, and even one minor villain's downfall. And then we get to book 2, which is still quite good, just with one another villain being defeated, a bit more court politics, and the two main characters finally confessing and getting together. But here's when things go really downhill. Basically, 90% of book 3 is pure domestic fluff. Nothing happens aside from Li Yu getting pregnant, and then half of the book itself is spent on them learning how to raise kids. Only one villain attempts to do something to disrupt the peace, but it is also resolved in less than a few pages. So the only redeeming part of book 3 is that we finally get to see Prince Jing's devious mind in action when he tricks the emperor into allowing his marriage with Li Yu. But other than that, again, it's just pure fluff with zero drama. And then in book 4, we have a random enemy that is never foreshadowed, whose identity just pops up out of nowhere. They are presumed to be incredibly strong because they've been building power inside the palace for a very long time, ever since Prince Jing was a child. But despite all of this build-up, they also lose very, very, very easily. We don't even get to see all the battle scenes either. Then, after the final bad dies, we go back again to all of that domestic fluff. And then the story ends with a happy ending. Basically, the pacing is all over the place. We have these long, tiring moments where nothing happens, and then sudden chapters where things just escalate out of nowhere, and then another sharp decline when everything gets solved and goes back to normal. I had so much trouble trying to finish book 3 and book 4 because of how boring it was. If the prose wasn't as simple as it was, I think I might have ended up DNFing the series. Look, I love fluff, okay? There's nothing that makes me smile more than seeing two main characters being all lovey-dovey with each other, but when there's like zero stakes and the plot goes nowhere outside of their domestic sweetness, it can kind of get boring really fast. And then to make matters worse, book 4 gives us a shocking reveal about Prince Jing. In my opinion, without spoiling anything, this one new piece of information about Prince Jing that we find out in this book made me want to slam my head against the wall. It was, in my opinion, the absolute worst thing the author could have done because it completely ruined Prince Jing as a character. And because of this one thing, I really wanted to give the last book of this series a 1 star. Like, it was that bad of a dramatic reveal. So yeah, these are just some reasons why I felt like the story didn't do it for me. Again, I'm sure there are plenty of people who genuinely enjoyed everything about this book. For me, I think it depends on the mood you're in. If you're searching for something very fluffy and easy, then this book is definitely still entertaining and it'll definitely make you feel good. If you want something that stimulates your emotions and brains more though, then no, I would probably steer away from this danmei. With that said, we come to the end of the non-spoiler section of this book review. From now on, I will be spilling more details and bringing up specific lines or scenes within the book that I both liked and didn't like. So for those who want to give this book a try, this is where you should stop watching the video. So thank you for everyone who made it this far. I hope my review so far was an enjoyable experience for you. To everyone else who is ready to listen to more, follow me on to the spoiler section of this book review. Okay, so I feel like lately I've been reading a lot of books or series where I just end up not liking the ending, and this series is also one of them. I like to pretend that book 4 doesn't exist because honestly, the reveal of Prince Jing's poisoning was kind of stupid. Like, I knew it was coming because we had some hints scattered throughout all of the books in this series, but then we reached the ultimate reveal that he was like poisoned all along. If the problem ended there, everything would still be within the realm of acceptable possibility, but then the author pulls off this incredibly dick move where they say that Prince Jing's muteness was actually a result of the poisoning and that he could actually be cured from his muteness. And when I reached this point of the book, I just closed it and sighed. Like, it's ableism all over again. I just don't understand why so many books have to portray disabilities as something that has to be cured in order for the characters to be fully happy. And like, one of the major charms of Liyu's and Prince Jing's relationship is their ability to read each other through visual cues. So the author suddenly making Prince Jing capable of talking again was such a cheap move. Like, yeah, sure, I get it. Like, Prince Jing was done so wrong by the evil concubine and got his life ruined because of his muteness, and it's nice to see the villain getting karma. But still, like, seriously? Did we really have to go down this route? Why can't we just leave flawed characters as flawed characters? I'm not saying that a disability is a flaw, but it's literally one of the characteristics that made him the way he was. It gave him so much more depth, and since this story doesn't even have incredibly meaningful or deep characters, this one thing is what made him stand out, and the author took that away from him. And then we also have Shu Yanyu, who finally realized that the Sixth Prince was using him all along. So he basically plotted revenge against the Sixth Prince by entering the Emperor's harem instead as a male concubine, and honestly, I was all for his decision. Like, go get that good, rich, and peaceful life for yourself. The Sixth Prince was also just pure trash and did not deserve Xu Yanyu at all, so I was really happy when Xu Yanyu just ignored the Sixth Prince when he self-destructed. It was so satisfying to me, and at that moment, I pretty much already forgave everything that Xu Yanyu did to Prince Jing and Liu. I seriously thought we were heading towards redemption for his character because it was such a nice thing to see him sort of come out of his role as a simple evil villain and seeing how everyone was just trying to use him instead. I really wanted him to become a good person, or at least become someone satisfied with building his own power instead of relying on someone else. But then the author had to pull more drama out of his ass to make Xu Yanyu resort back to his dirty tricks for no good reason. Why did he even want to destroy Li Yu's reputation at this point of the story? He doesn't even like Prince Jing anymore, and the only thing driving his actions is pure pettiness. And yet this is the same guy who dared to throw away the Sixth Prince immediately to latch himself onto the Emperor because he saw the Emperor as a better catch. I just feel like he should have been a lot more smarter than that. He shouldn't have let his jealousy or anger towards all of the unfairness in his life take the better of him. In the end, he lost everything again because of his schemes, even though no one forced him to do anything this time. So once again, the author had a choice to make the characters more complex, but decided against it. I was really unhappy with that. I thought that this story had a lot more potential to be something better and more deeper and well written, but I guess the author just wanted to keep things as a simpler read, which is fine for what this specific series sought out to do. I was just kind of unsatisfied by the end of it all. But enough with all the negativity, because I really did enjoy the first half of this series, and I just want to talk about how utterly whipped Prince Jing is. I mean, come on, this dude built a whole ass miniature town on the floor of a gigantic pond just so that Liu could swim around while also experiencing the market outside of the palace. And he has all of these water bowls of all sizes prepared so that Liu can just jump out of his fishing bowl and make his way over to Prince Jing's table. I swear, his palace probably has a giant warehouse filled with all of Liu's fish tanks. And also, this particular quote that Prince Jing wrote on paper for Liu to read when they finally confessed and got together was so sweet. Literally, it's the best couple of lines in this entire story. This is what he tells to Liu. Your decision to stay the night. Leave whenever you delight. With you, I will never fight. I'll love only you in this life. Holy fucking shit! Our bro is so damn whipped. Also, kudos to whoever did the translation for this book because the rhyme scheme here is excellent. I was screaming on my sofa when I reached this passage of the book. Prince Jing is just waving that green flag in the air, and at that point, I was like, Liu, do not fuck this up. You have this amazing man who's willing to do whatever you want. Literally, do not fumble this man. And then in book 4, Prince Jing basically says, oh wait, I said I'd love only you in this life, but nah, I can do better. And then he tells Liu, we'll be married for 100 lives. This is just the first. Bruh. OMG. Prince Jing, the man that you are. Liu is literally the luckiest fish in the entire world. Also, the best character in this entire series is probably Wang Xi, the prince's eunuch, because this man does not get paid enough to deal with all the bullshit that Prince Jing makes him do. At one point, he walks in on Prince Jing basically being disheveled after having sex with Liu or something, and Wang Xi at this point has no idea that the pet fish is actually a human being. So he basically thinks that Prince Jing is some horny, crazy bastard who attempted to sexually assault an actual fish.
Bruh.
And this whole scene was so hilarious to me. And he always warns Prince Jing to treat Mr. Fish better. And Prince Jing is like, but I already do so. But Wang Shi is still under the misunderstanding that Prince Jing is abusing his fish sexually, so they're not on the same page. This communication running gag just made me want to cry because it was so stupid and hilarious. It really was one of the best highlights of this entire series. Anyway, I just wanted to give you guys an insight on my reading experience with this danmei series. I honestly didn't expect much going into it because by reading the synopsis, I kind of already knew that the story was just going to be that kind of like fun, entertaining, brainless read. And in that sense, I think this book fulfilled my expectations. I really do think that this was a nice read, but you just have to be in the mood for something over the top and completely absurd. For my book ratings, I gave the first book of this series a 5 stars. Honestly, great introduction to the series, super entertaining, fully engaging, hilarious, and rom-com at its best. The second book gets 4 stars because it's still very funny and cute, but it was just slightly less entertaining than the first book. The third book is probably around a 3.5 star read because it just dragged on and on with the domestic fluff, but I do have to admit that the domestic scenes were very sweet and romantic, so it did make me feel good reading about them. And then we have the last book, which is just a mediocre 3 or maybe even lower because of the reveal about Prince Jing's disability. So if anyone wants to read this book, just make sure to keep your expectations like very low and go in with the intention of just wanting to read a lot of fluffy, sweet scenes and comical moments with very minor political intrigue or plot. I will recommend the first and second book to everyone, but probably not the others. Like, if you were to give this book a try, I think you can just read like book 1 and book 2 and then just pretend that they reach a happy ending somehow and, you know, happily live with their children. Like, there's nothing that actually happens in book 3 and 4, so I don't think you're gonna miss anything by skipping out on these books. So yeah, that's it for my book review on this comedy danmei series. I hope you guys had fun listening to me yap about this book. And until next time, may your skies always be blue. See you next read!